sometimes it's a little hard to see questions as they come in. So please feel free to utilize it, and we will definitely do Q&A at the end of the presentation as well, because I want this to be most meaningful for y'all. The other piece is that Sarah just started the recording, so you can refer back to this, or if you have any colleagues that maybe weren't able to join us today, we want to make sure that they get the access to information as well. I will give the quick disclaimer that the allergies are allergying today, and I also am in the Russell House, and they are working on a lot of construction projects. So if at any point in time, one, my voice goes out, or two, it gets really loud construction wise, just give me a brief minute and I promise we will just keep trucking along. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get us started for our presentation today. Awesome. Of course, it started at the end of the screen. You just get a little bit of a preview. Awesome. So we're going to go ahead and jump right on in and talk to you a little bit about utilizing Visuals and to pull reports for new student orientation. As time allows, I'm also going to do a little bit of an overview of the behind the scenes of VZ so you can see what a student sees. And then I'm also just obviously happy to answer any questions that y'all might have and get into the specifics of things as well. One quick thing that I would love to just start out before we get too far in though, does anybody have any areas that you want us to focus on specifically today that kind of doesn't already fit into what I just shared? Feel free to unmute and shout those things out so I can make sure I cover them. I'm doing my U101 countdown. Okay, I think that then we're all on the same page, but if something does pop up, don't hesitate to let me know. So let's go ahead and hop on in. If I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, my name is Allison Lee-Hughes. I serve as the Director of New Student Orientation, and I've been at USC now for 3 years, and very familiar with Visuals and want to just make sure it's a really easy process for y'all. So please reach out and let us know if you're not getting what you need from Visuals and we'll definitely try to figure out how we can go about getting it working for you. So a few goals. I want to develop a little bit of an understanding of what Visuals In is. We'll tell you all the behind the scenes pieces so you're aware of it, but really want you to get familiar with the system. I encourage you, if you can, feel free to have VZ pulled up on the side if you already have access. If not, we're going to cover that in this presentation as well. We will explore different types of access that are available, whether that is just the general user access or that manager access, and make sure that you have it or someone in your area does have it so you're able to customize and pull reports as needed. We're going to talk about the customization pieces of reports and learn how to pull them specifically, and then troubleshoot any issues that might arise and then any possible solutions as well. Plus, we're going to give you some key contacts in case you want to reach out and do a deeper dive with someone one-on-one, or if you just have a quick question, all of those are totally fine. I want to make sure you know who to reach out to. So that's our goals for today. I'm going to move this screen in case that is in anybody's way and being able to see. First and foremost, you're probably wondering if you've never worked with Visuals then, what is it? Ultimately, it is our registration system that we utilize for new student orientation, and it really does serve two purposes. One, it's a registration system for students to be able to navigate and select their orientation date, but on the back end, which students and supporters never see, it also allows advisors and other university staff members and faculty members to be able to pull reports so they get the appropriate access that's needed. If you don't know how to sign into VC, this is the QR code, and I'll drop the link as well. That way you can actually bookmark this and encourage you to bookmark it, because if you commit that URL to memory, you are better than me. I've worked in orientation with Visuals and system for probably about 10 years, and I don't have it memorized. It also allows you to pull those reports like I was mentioning. And it's not just being about a student and their major or college. We can get into some of the more nitty details, things that get involved with population, depending on the timing of the systems and if they're all blending together. getting to get information about immunization holds or potentially citizenship or residency holds. All of those pieces are in there. It just is only as reliable as the information and when it's inputted. Samantha, I see a hand raised. Do you have a question?
We lost about 45 seconds of you there. It was glitching, and I
Oh
was just
no.
trying to catch you. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. I appreciate you saying that. Did y'all hear anything about Visuals N?
Yes, the last part came through.
Okay, so I will backtrack really quickly then. Um, Ultimately, Visual Zen is a system that we use for two purposes. One, to allow students to be able to register for orientation and to sign up a family member or a supporter who wants to attend orientation with them. And then two, it allows our advisors and faculty staff on campus that need access to be able to pull reports and learn a little bit more information so you're able to accurately do your jobs as well. That is the quickest summary about it. There's a QR code here on the left-hand side of the screen that you should be able to scan and actually use to log into the Visuals Zen system if you do have a current username and password. If you don't, that's coming up next. All right. And speaking of that access, you can scan this QR code and request user access. This is a Qualtrics form that is internal to our office. It's managed by David Flowers, who you might have worked with in the past. He is our office manager, and he helps get appropriate access set up so you can be able to access Visuals in and pull the reports as needed. So if you have any new staff members, they're probably going to need to request access, but I imagine most of you already have access if you've worked with the University Advising Center or orientation in some capacity before. It's not something that you have to do every year. It is just something, generally speaking, that carries over from one year to the next. But on that note, if I have any managers or upper level leadership within each college in the room, it is important to audit the system and let us know if somebody might have moved on to a different role. That way we don't have external people in the system when they don't need that access any longer. And usually Flowers is able to turn around VZ requests same day, maybe the next day, depending on the load of questions and things that we have going on in the office. But I definitely encourage you to put it in sooner than later, and we'll get you taken care of. So actually getting into the heart of the presentation and pulling reports. Once you log into VZ, and you can follow along like I mentioned before, if you already have access, you will log in and this is what your screen should feasibly look like. You've got only one tab along the top as well as a data transfer log. So if you ever are curious, when was the last time this was imported? You can see that it was imported on a specific date and time. For us, that does start on every evening at 8 p.m. and it runs throughout the evening, however long it takes. So first and foremost, you'll log in, you'll see the reports tab at the top. If you click that, then you would be able to select student reports. And once you click student reports, it will take you to the list of reports that you have available to you based on access. If we logged into my actual VZ account, I have 7 pages of reports, I think, and there are quite many of them, and you probably would never even need half of them because I have access to all the college-based reports. But if you are a college-specific advisor, you should have access to the specific college in which you are working with. And maybe a general report here or there if you have anything that you need to specifically work with. You can see on the screen there's a first gen report that I have access to in this test environment, as well as a living learning community report that I have access to in this test environment. But for the purposes of today, we're going to look at this HRSM freshman report as if I was an HRSM advisor. So once you select that, if you have the very basic level access to Visuals in, it's not going to allow you to do the customization because in theory, if you had manager level access, you could really customize the report much further and potentially erase information that is needed. So that's why we do have 2 different levels, that general access, someone that just needs to be able to pull the report each day versus someone with that manager access that has a lot more customization that goes into it. So assuming you have that general access, this is what it would look like. It's going to tell you what that report does so that it pulls information as an HRSM advisor and what they might need for advising for specifically freshman students. On that last page prior to, you probably saw that there is a separate transfer report, and that should exist for every college, a freshman and a transfer report. If you ever just want to pull it based on one student in particular and you know their university user ID, you can put that in the like 7 one-time SIS ID filter box, and you could just pull the report based off of that. But in more often situations, you're going to be pulling a full report. So if that's the case, you'll click Run Report, and then it's going to download the report available to you. And this is an example of what it's going to look like. It's always going to tell you how many students are included in the report when you pulled it, but then it will have a lot of information. And again, this is customizable based on what information you need to be able to fully assist the student attending academic advising with you. So on the far left-hand side, you're going to see session date, their university ID number, followed by, I think that might be their VIP number. I'm not actually sure, that third column. It's going to tell you the student type. It'll outline whether it's a freshman student, a transfer student, an honors student, anything along those lines. It'll highlight the semester in which they're starting classes. This is really helpful if we ever do have a mixed session for students. Typically a little bit later in the summer, we do those August sessions, and you might have some freshmen and transfers in there. That would be that student type. Or for the semester piece, for our transfer student population, sometimes we have them, if they're starting in the summer, be mixed in there, so you'll want to pay attention there as well. We've got name, college, major, all of the different information that you could need. And I really do highly suggest deleting these first 3 rows and then sorting your report. That way you're getting students only for the session that you're specifically looking at. That's going to make it a lot more manageable, so you don't have to worry about it too terribly much. This is what that report looks like, a lot of features. And again, if there is a special population that a student falls within, like honors, for instance, a little bit down the page, you can see that that student is tagged with honors. I mentioned earlier immunizations and hold codes and all of those pieces. In theory, it should be able to pass that information from Banner over to Visuals N, but it's not always the most up-to-date and accurate information. So please use that with a little bit of a grain of salt. It's never hurtful to be like, oh, looks like you have an immunization hold listed on your account. You need to get that taken care of. But it might be that because of how the systems communicate with each other, that it's been updated in one system, but not updated yet in the other system because of the file transfer process. So I always just like to give that caveat as we go throughout the training. A few reminders, if you're wanting to save a report, it's probably going to default to a different file type that's probably not defaulted on your computer to be able to easily update. So I do suggest that you save that to your desktop or appropriate folder, and also make sure to save it as an XLSX file. That way you can fully customize it as needed. I already talked a little bit about sorting your spreadsheet based on your needs. Probably the most meaningful one is going to be session date, but keep that in mind for sure. And then keep in mind that all information is imported from Visuals N or from Banner into Visuals N and vice versa. So the information that we're getting should be, in theory, accurate according to what is in Banner as well. Again, it just gets into the timing of when those reports are updated in Banner versus updated and passed over to VZ. And then one last caveat before we move forward is that all this information is FERPA protected. So really, we want to be really intentional and make sure that nobody is accessing the system unless they genuinely need that access. And then also that the information that is being utilized for job-based information. We're not sharing out user IDs or any confidential information with anybody outside the advising realm. So just keep that in mind. If someone does have a request, we ask that you just send them through our office, and we'll determine if we're able to meet that request or if we need to further share them and connect them to the registrar's office or someone along those lines. So managing reports, most of you are probably going to have that general level, but there is a secondary level to where you can customize the reports that are within VZ or even build a report from scratch. And that's this manager level access. So you still log in the same way, you still hit reports, and you still hit the student tab and select the report that you want to go into. But then this kind of is opened up and you're able to customize a lot further than you would have been if you're a general accessor of VZ. So there's a lot of data that is available within here. Probably the most relevant fields that are going to be here for you is going to get into the next slide. Student types, campuses, majors, event dates, attendance, and so on. Ultimately, I really do encourage you to have a conversation with leadership within your college and the University Advising Center to determine if you need that manager access. We're happy to grant it, but there are some downsides to it, so I'll cover those here in just a second. As you can see, managers do have access to add additional student data. So maybe you have the USC email address, but you also want their secondary email address. Or maybe you want to know when they were admitted versus when they registered for orientation. And those aren't currently on your reports. You would have the ability to pull that over and add it to your report if you were a manager. Managers also have access to be able to adjust the submission date. So that's another big piece that is there. So if you want to look at students that have recently registered for orientation, you would be able to customize it that way. Reservation and student status. This is showing if a student is pending, meaning they haven't completed their orientation session. If they're pending submission, meaning they haven't paid for it yet. Submission receives mean they have completed it and paid for it. And submission receives mean but they owe money, means they have an outstanding balance of some kind. And then student statuses is really big for us because if a student misses their orientation session, we'll cancel them in the system. Or if for some reason they've notified us that they are not attending USC, but it hasn't fully processed on the admission side of things, we'll go ahead and cancel that. That way that date that they would have been registered for is available for somebody else to hop in that seat instead. So a few specific things that I think manager access really helps with. It's by selecting just the one event that you're looking for. So general folks are able to pull a full list of everybody attending orientation, and manager status allows you to just pull it for one specific event. So maybe we're prepping for that first freshman orientation session. Instead of getting the list, I think earlier it had 663 people on it, and only probably 30 of them were attending that first session max. You could go in and just select the May 27th date here, and it would only pull the students that are registered for that specific orientation session. So it drills that list a lot further down and you don't have to worry about sorting it as much. So definitely a benefit there. It also is helpful because as the files get bigger and bigger throughout the summer, and as every college or advisor is trying to pull a list at the same time, it can slow the visuals and system down just a little bit because it's got so many demands happening, and so it can make the reports pull a little bit faster. Other things that I want to highlight, I mentioned attended versus, or I don't think I actually did mention attended versus non-attended. If you ever wanted to go back and see of your students who did attend orientation or who did not, that will be updated typically by 12 p.m. on the day of that orientation session. Typically we get it a little bit sooner, but that's our buffer time available. So if you're advising freshman students and you want to see who actually checked into orientation, you could pull it the morning of day 2 and see who's attended and not attended and whether or not you should expect them in orientation. So that's a nice benefit. Different student types. This screenshot was taken from a transfer report, but you'll kind of see that you can select specific ones from there. We default all of those. So if the transfer report is selected, then it's going to pull all the different transfer student types versus a freshman report's going to pull all the different freshman student types. There are multiples, and it does get a little tricky, so that's why manager access is at that like elevated level. If you ever click out of one of them and it's not pulling everybody on your list any longer, please feel free to reach out to our office, and we're happy to kind of help customize that report and get it back to where you need it to be. I also think it's super helpful. The colleges piece is there, but also the major piece is going to be super helpful if you only want to pull a list for a specific group of majors. Now, granted, it's not going to only show your majors, it's going to show every major that's out there. So it is a long list and you got to scroll, but you can select multiple majors at a time. But if you want to just get everyone that falls within your college, you just select your college and you can leave the major field blank and you don't have to worry about that at all. You can select multiples as you go through. If I wanted to select, you just hit the shift button and I would select readmit all the way down to transfer athlete, and it would pull everyone within that. Same thing here. If I wanted to pull a report that was going to pull these first three, I would click no major, hold the shift button, and down to services management, and it would pull everyone within that. So just keep that in mind as well. Once managers are for sure that their data is correct, they just need to scroll to the bottom of the page and click that run report piece, and it will actually run the report for them and populate that list just as it had before, but it's only going to pull the data based on what you selected in those specific fields. Some big reminders here: avoid saving over a report. As I mentioned before, we've set these up to hopefully capture all the common data that you might need. But if you save over it, we will have to go back in and manually edit those reports again. So we just do ask that if you're wanting to make a big change, run that through new student orientation so we can make sure it's getting you the information that you want and need, and that it's also not going to mess up anybody else who might also be running that report, because multiple people have access to the same report. If you ever pull a report and don't have students on it, it's likely that you have some kind of conflicting filter. And that's why we do leave a lot of them blank, so it's pulling everything that it could possibly pull. Specifically, one thing that comes to mind, if you're looking at a student start term and you only have summer 2025 selected, but you really are looking for fall students, then it's not going to pull those fall students. That's why we would leave it unselected and just encourage you to filter instead or sort instead. And then again, if you think that you don't have anybody on your report, I do encourage you to reach out to the Office of New Student Orientation so we can double check and make sure that you genuinely have no students registered for that session. We have had it happen before where folks haven't confirmed and then they weren't prepared for advising. And it was just that somebody had saved over their report and it's showing invalid data that nobody was registered, but they did have students registered. So we would love to double check that with you and just make sure that everybody's on the same page, so students get that good experience and y'all get the appropriate time to prepare, because I know that was probably really stressful on that day for advising. A few to-do list items or things to take away. If you don't have a VZ account, definitely go ahead and request one. It's going to be a lot easier to do it now and get familiar with the system than waiting closer to orientation. We do have a transfer session on May 8th, so that's a really great opportunity for you to kind of play around with the system and see what options are available to you, or if you need additional access with a smaller population of students, since I think we're sitting around somewhere around that 50 student mark, so it's not that big. I do encourage you to pull a report to get familiar with the process and also to make sure that you have the appropriate college access for the reports that you need to be able to pull. For our managers out there, if you are noticing that there is a specific field that you're not getting on your report and you want it, go ahead and review that report, make the updates that are necessary, reach out to our office, and we're happy to make that adjustment with you as well. And then I do encourage our managers to audit your list of users based on the current staff that you have in your areas that are working with orientation. That way we can get anyone added that doesn't have access, and we can remove anyone that no longer works there or no longer works with orientation so they don't have access that they don't need. And then, as I mentioned before, if you have any needs for additional reports, doing any specialized programming or anything like that based on a student type, let us know and we can create you an additional report as well. So that's that portion of the presentation. I do want to answer some questions, but before we get there, I want to share some contact information for you. David Flowers, I mentioned him earlier, is our office manager, and he's our main visuals and contact. I've got his phone number and his email there. And he is a great starting point, especially during orientation. When we are out actually doing presentations and everything, Flowers is in the office. Sorry. Sorry about that. And then if you have questions from students, families, and supporters, they can give our office, our main office, a call at any point in time as well. I'm going to stop sharing here, clear my throat, and then I'll share my screen for visuals and walkthrough. So sorry about that, y'all. With that being said, what questions do you all have before we get into the actual walkthrough of the visuals and system? Anything that I showed you that didn't make sense or you want more information about? Yeah, William, what can we do for you?
Yeah, quick question, Allison. You might have made mention of this prior to, but will this presentation be shared through SharePoint, or would we be able to have access to it?
Yes, the recording is there, coughing and all, so I apologize. But yes, we will have that available to you to be able to share out with other colleagues or for you to refer back to it. That's a great question.
All right, thank you.
And Allison, if you get that to us, we can add it to the advisor SharePoint for orientation advising as well.
Awesome. I think Sarah's recording it, so y'all should already have access.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Sorry, Sarah.
No, you're good. Any other questions before I do a walkthrough of the system itself? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. That way you can see it. And this will be my test account, just kind of what I showed you a minute ago. That way you can see what we're talking through. So as I mentioned, this is what your screen should look like. I'm gonna close this presentation, so perfect. Okay. You can click the Reports tab, Student Reports, and these are the reports that I mentioned earlier. If I sign in as a freshman, this is just the general access that I mentioned, and I can run a report from here. I have manager access on this report though, and this is the area that I want to spend a little bit of time on so you can see it in real life. You can see there is quite a bit of data that is available to include, and there is even so much data that we don't even use within new student orientation, but we have it available to us if it is needed. And then this field here will actually show you what is included naturally in the report. So this is the HRSM report. So you can see it listed out here. I'm so sorry, y'all. You can sort it by date, submission date, as I mentioned before. You also can go in and see if they've done the submission received and customize the report as you go through. Here's, as I mentioned earlier, all the different student types that we have. So we've got affiliated students, Carolina Life, freshman students, athletes that are freshmen, transfers that are athletes. So there's a lot of granular details here that I think is really important to keep in mind. That way, if you accidentally click off, you're only going to now pull that report for honors athletes instead of all the transfer students that we mentioned beforehand. So that's what I mean when I say don't save over the report. You can run it and not save over it or not save it. That way, if you want to change the report as a manager, you can, but the next person that comes in and runs it gets the same transfer information that was done previously. And then go from there and scroll down and run the report. So that's that side of it. I am going to log out and log into a student's account so we can see the behind the scenes of it, because I think it's helpful to see what a student sees at USC. This is a registered student already. I'm actually not even sure what college she is in. I picked her Cass. So we have the ability to impersonate exactly what a student sees. You would not be able to see this part of it, but I think it's helpful for y'all to be able to kind of follow along with what students are seeing on their end. So when they first log in, we need them to get ready for new student orientation. In the past, we used to have quite a few things listed here in regards to their task list, but admissions has done such a great job with their enrollment checklist for students that we only put the things that are going to help students get ready for new student orientation in this section, and we will refer students to their admissions portal so they can complete all the things there. That's where immunizations are listed. That's where their math placement is listed. And it's in real time. So if a student completes one of those tasks, it automatically gives them a green check mark, but versus right here where they have to check it off themselves. So the admissions version is truly a better option. But we do encourage students to visit the admissions portal and follow all the steps that are necessary there and give them contact information. We encourage them to get their Carolina card and how they need to go in and update that. To complete Cocky Transitions modules, which is new this year, they'll get an email 2 weeks prior to their new student orientation experience, but we've at least told them that from the very beginning. We have a service project that we complete during orientation supporting the Gamecock Community Shop, and then obviously they need to attend their orientation session. But if they want more information, they can go to the When You Arrive page and learn more about parking for orientation or what items need to be brought if they participate in the Gamecock Community Shop. So in regards to registering for orientation, the student is already registered. So this portion is already complete. It normally would show up in that first tab, but we're going to go into her actual system and start from the very beginning. So to start, they have a brief overview of what orientation is and how it's set up. We've got some acknowledgments that we want them to be aware of and things that they need to agree to participate in. Really just some behind the scenes office policies, but it's important for students to know what they're getting into from the very beginning. They sign that for us. And then from there, we get some identification information, mailing address, contact information. A lot of this is already imported in from their admissions record, so it's taken care of on the back end. But if they do have an email, it also adds in their USC email for them, and they can make adjustments to this email if they'd like. We send text messages throughout our office as well, and so they can opt into those or out of those as they see fit. Most people just automatically opt in. The student can go through and see if they fall with any student groups, what college they're in, what major they're in, if they have any special populations, and everything listed here. We encourage students, if they are looking at changing their major, that they stop here and don't continue registering for orientation, because orientation registration is college specific. We reach out to all of our colleges and say, hey, how many people can you actually see in any given orientation session? And we limit capacities based off of that. And so if a student is considering a major change, we want to go ahead and get them to do that prior to registering for orientation 1, so they get the orientation session that's available to them based on their college, and also so you have the information up to date, especially if a student's already considering that major change on the front end. Once they go here, I will not click anything because this is a live student's account, but they can see all the sessions that are available to them and how many seats are still available specifically to them. So you can see there's quite a few options for this student. Cass is one of our larger colleges, and so they're able to go from there. she is currently registered for this session right here. That's why it shows that it's grayed out. If I were to click a different button here, it would kick her out of that session and potentially open that seat up for somebody else. And as you see, it is 0 of 70, so there are no additional options, so I wouldn't be able to add her back in. So it is really important that they know that this is a live, living, breathing system, and that if they click out, they will change their date. They can add additional night before or night after orientation stay if they choose to. At this point in time, it's $35 for them to stay overnight, an additional night, and they can add that within their account. If we have any students that need accommodations as they go throughout the orientation process, we're able to meet those needs. The only thing that we're really not able to provide is a physical wheelchair for liability purposes. So if a student does have a mobility accommodation, we have other options that we can provide. We just can't provide a wheelchair. They select which ones are there. They tell us a little bit more about the accommodation that they need, and then we will actually reach out to them and work individually with them to get them connected. If it's a dietary piece, we'll connect them with Carolina Food Co. If it's a mobility accommodation, depending on the severity of it, we might get them connected with parking and transportation for an accessible shuttle, or if it's something where we can do our golf cart, we'll do that instead. So we'll work through all the individual pieces for students, but we can make pretty much any reasonable accommodation as long as we have appropriate lead time. Sometimes students don't tell us ahead of time, and it's really hard the day of a session if they need a sign language interpreter or something along those lines to provide them same day. So we just ask that they tell us at least 2 weeks in advance. Once they get through that, they can add a guest for orientation. The student chose not to, but they just click that. And then we're also collecting all of the data and information on their family members. And then the very last step is them getting to this final page, reviewing all of the information. And then if the student hadn't already registered and paid, which she has, they would see a Pay Now tab instead of a Save and Continue tab. So this is kind of what it looks like on the back end for a student. The other thing I'd like to show you is just that they get, oh, I forgot that I impersonated a student, so it's going to kick me out. I can show you what the confirmation email looks like. So this is Alexia's, our sample student's actual confirmation email that she received. It tells them the date of orientation, the times that they should be planning to be present for orientation, if they've registered a family member, how much they paid, and then quite a bit of information on helping them have the best orientation experience possible. So there's a lot of information that's included, and we reach out to students and remind them of this ahead of their orientation session as well. That way, if they registered all the way back in March and now they're not, they're not going until July, they'll get some reminders along the way as well. So that is a little bit about our confirmation emails. I think in general, the average student gets outreach from our office anywhere from like 7 to 14 times, depending on the type of student, the population, so on and so forth. And those are split out over emails and text messages as well. So that's the behind the scenes kind of student view of new student orientation registration. As I mentioned before, I'd love to save a little bit of time in case y'all have questions. So y'all feel free to let us know what questions you have either in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask as well. Yeah, Allie, go for it.
Thanks so much, Allison. That was really helpful. I appreciate it, especially because I'm new to the manager role this year, so more access than ever before. I wanted to ask a question, actually, somewhat on behalf of one of our colleges participating in the pre-orientation academic advising. This was Sarah Deswitz, sent me a message. She noticed that she had some new things added this year. Especially, like, obviously the Cocky transitions being new, and wondering what that pulls particularly for POA students. So will it only pull that information once they've completed both parts, or is there going to be any indication of part 1 or part 2? You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Great question. There are two different parts. It'll pull once they've completed part 1 and part 2. I can take a deeper dive and send maybe a screenshot or two to Sarah to demonstrate that. But it also looks like for those 4 colleges, we probably need to go in and adjust some things to make sure that that's automatically being included. Because if I am guessing correctly, we have not pulled that over because that work just got done maybe a week ago. So we'll need to update that on that report. And we can do that for all of the colleges. That way you all will know whether or not Cocky Transitions has been completed or not. Now, the part 1 part might not matter for the non-4 colleges participating in POA, but we'll at least add the full Cocky Transitions completion on there. Good question. I did drop in the chat while folks are maybe thinking through other questions, just some common links that might be helpful. We've got the VZ sign-in link that I mentioned at the beginning, requesting VZ access in case you need to share that with anybody and you missed that QR code. And then I also included the registration guide for new student orientation. I realize this might be a little bit of a moot point, considering that the enrollment deposit deadline is tomorrow. But just in case, I think it is helpful just to see kind of how students are encouraged to register for orientation. In addition to the registration guide, they also get a pre-arrival guide for new student orientation. And it is a similar publication that is about 9 pages that outlines things that they can do to prepare, big reminders where they park, where they'll stay overnight if they're in a freshman session. So we try to put a lot of communication in one place so they're not overwhelmed and they're not confused of, oh, I think I got this from orientation, but then I might have gotten that from the college as well. So if there are specific pieces, please feel free to let us know. And we're always happy to add those messaging pieces either to our website or to one of those publications as well. Anybody have any other questions? Then I might ask you all a question if I can, because I've got a good group of folks here. Is there anything that you would like to see VZ be able to do that it currently doesn't do? Or maybe you're not sure if it can or can't. I'd love for you to either drop it in the chat or unmute. We have a really great working relationship with Visual Zen, and they're very responsive to adding features that are beneficial to other campuses as well. And so they ask us regularly, are the reports giving you what you need? Should we do this in a different way? So if there is something that pops up, feel free to drop it in the chat, or you can always shoot me an email. I'm dropping my email in the chat as well, because I realize I only gave you Flowers' contact information. Please don't ever hesitate to reach out and let us know how we can customize those to where you're getting the information that's needed.
Hey, I think the filters without having manager access would have been helpful. Because it sounds like you can only do filtering out by major or certain specific things if you have manager access. But I'm pretty sure most people would love to be able to filter their reports before they download them for just the students that they need. So
we can get anyone manager access. It just has to be approved through the leadership.
I don't think people want that, because then you go in, you touch something and you don't realize you messed something up. So I think just the filter part would be a great addition, because in most reporting systems, you can filter out before you can download a report. So
yes.
So that would be the thing, to have filters without having to have manager access.
All right. Just so I fully understand the question, because I think the only thing that manager access does is allow you to filter and then save the report. So we're basically just wanting manager access without saving the report.
Yes, because if I understood it correctly, you could also manipulate a report and change it for other people, right? So let's say, so if it's 10 of us, right, and someone has manager access and they manipulate the report incorrectly, it's going to change it for all of us, right?
Yeah.
So that is the reason why people should not have manager access. I'm clear on that. But I think the plus was people can filter. So for example, let's say we have 6 majors, but I'm an advisor and I'm only prepping for SPTE. I would love to be able to filter my report with just SPTE students and the date without having to download and then sort. So the filter part, I think, is what's attractive, but people don't want to be able to manipulate and delete something by mistake.
Yeah. Okay. It was the sorting piece that I wanted to
Yeah.
clarify, because you can sort in Excel. I realize it would be so much easier if it was within the system.
Correct.
So I'll definitely touch base with VZ. But you can do that just outside of the system. So
Correct.
I will ask about that.
Yeah.
Allie?
Allison, this is a very niche ask, so I apologize. And it's kind of, I see some honors friends in the room as well. In the past, when I was pulling these for honors, we were unique in that we were registering before orientation. And so one of the things we would then do with our VZ list is then actually Kate, who is on this call, will be doing this summer, pull registered hours. So we would know how many hours they were coming to before attending orientation. And so I just want to like put that out there. That was niche for honors. It will be less niche this summer for POA. I don't know if that's ever, because that obviously is also having to do with data sharing between Banner and VZ. And so I don't know what's possible or not, but I know that would be an interesting thing to explore for future if the world is our oyster. I think there's other ways we can get at that data, and there's other ways that people have found a way out. But I figure if you're asking, that is something that would be fantastic to know. How many hours are they coming to orientation with, if that makes sense?
Yes, and that's registered class hours,
registered hours. Yeah. So again, like I think honors was the only one who really that was impacting in past years, and we had methods around that, but this summer a little different, right? So that gets to some of the conversations we've been having around POA too. But
yeah, no, that's a good addition. One thing I will note, if you've ever used some of our special populations in the past, you might see that it's a lot more accurate this year. We've done a lot of behind the scenes work and also done a secondary integration with Slate. So in some instances, we might have been able to get a list, import them manually, and then tag them as a special population. Now it is automated and it's coming directly from Slate instead of Banner. Banner exists on tables in the backend. It's very complicated, but sometimes I think of our athlete population being a big one. We knew that they were athletes because athletics was telling them that, or telling us that, so we could put them in an athlete-based session. But unfortunately, they were not updated in Banner as athletes yet until much later in the summer, like months later. And so that has been really helpful because now we know now that they are athletes and we don't have to do any of the manipulation of data on the back end. I say that all to say, to Allie, to your point, if we can't get it done through Banner, there might be opportunities for us to look at Slate. And since that integration exists, be able to pull some additional data. So if there are data points like that, in addition to registration or registered class hours, and then the filtering piece, again, feel free to let us know what those things are. Awesome. Well, I definitely want to be respectful of time. And I know we had a little bit more time scheduled for this time, so I'm happy to stay on and address any questions one-on-one. But really, I just want to say thank you for the work that y'all do as we are gearing up to a very busy season after and maybe during a very busy season that you have already been in. If there are folks in your areas that don't have access, again, please encourage them to get access and start playing around in the system. And then definitely let us know if you have questions so we can help get the information that you need. Y'all are great, doing great work. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.